Hello, hello. Welcome to all our friends in Shaolin and South Brooklyn. Bay Ridge has been representing with a lot of liveliness in the last several days. Thank you to everyone who is joining us live or who will watch this after the fact. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Brittany Ramos de Barros. I use she pronouns, and I am running for Congress for the 2022 midterms to fight for New York 11 in Congress and unseat our current representative who has voted against our COVID relief benefits, our elections, everything, and fighting for a better vision for our communities that is really rooted in the needs of our people. All of that said, I am so honored to introduce some of you, and he is an OG, so many of you probably already know him. But Tom Shcherebenko, infamous around the island, has been so involved in so many different projects, and today he's been kind enough to join us and share about a new, very exciting organizing project on Staten Island. And so, Tom, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, Brittany, thanks for doing this. This is exactly the kind of activism that we wish political candidates would do, because this is what it's all about for us. It's grassroots organizing, getting the average person involved, encouraging them, showing them that this isn't some like mysterious, vague thing. I wanted to run for office. What do I do? Every person should feel empowered, especially women, especially people of color. So I'm so glad I'm so glad you're running. I'm so glad you're running these live streams. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. That's exactly what we hope, is that people will really see themselves in this, and that this will be the campaign will be a space where people who are already doing amazing work or who want to do amazing work come together to build that kind of connectivity and community and power. Because, I don't know about you, but as a Staten Islander, I'm tired of being told that we have to settle. I don't think we can afford to anymore. And we need people who are willing to fight for the whole package, the bold vision. And I really believe, I'm curious how you feel, but I really believe that if we set out to do that, that we are the majority, that we have the power if we come together to build the campaign that it would take for us to advance that agenda. And so that's what we're up to. And that's why we take the time to feature the work that's already happening all around the district. So, without any further ado, I'm excited for you to take a little time to introduce yourself. Before we get into it, because this is kind of my weekly space to see people and talk, I also want to acknowledge that there were incredible general strikes happening all over the country in solidarity with Palestinian communities that have been under attack. And shout out to Bay Ridge. I was in Bay Ridge for Nakba, the 73rd anniversary of Nakba, which for anybody who doesn't know was when basically there was widespread, tens of thousands, if not more, Palestinians were forcibly removed from their homes and their land in order to make way for the new state in 1948 that we now call Israel. And so, we continue to pray, to organize, to fight, and to activate and mobilize in service of true peace, right? Which requires a peace that is rooted in justice. And so I say all of that, my heart goes out to all of the communities that have been harmed by those actions. And, I just wanted to acknowledge that I know a lot of my friends in our communities are really hurting right now, and we're with you. So all of that said, speaking of organizing and getting involved and continuing to build our power, we're here to talk about Citizens Action, which there is a brand new, shiny Citizens Action chapter, branch.
I guess it's a branch right now.
Okay, a branch in Staten Island, which I'm really excited about. And Tom, you're one of the founding members. But before we get into that, I would love to just introduce you as a human. Tell us a little bit about your background in Staten Island. You as a person, how did you find yourself as a person who's so involved in so many of these issues?
Well, I moved to Staten Island in 1997. I had 3 small children, looking for affordable housing. Wanted someplace with a few bedrooms, and a a good neighborhood to raise kids in.
Mhm.
And at that point in time, the other boroughs were becoming unaffordable for families. So
Mhm.
we found a nice home here in Staten Island on the North Shore, which is
Mhm.
incredibly diverse. So we knew it would be a great place to raise kids and affordable. Um, I wish it was still as affordable as it was 25 years ago. Unfortunately, that's the problem all over the city. But it worked out great for us. It was a nice home. Um, my wife and I have been involved in politics for over 50 years. That's how we met. And so we started out looking for different organizations that we can get involved with. We heard about Peace Action. We heard about different Democratic Party clubs. Um, and we were active in some of those for a while. And what happened as far as citizen action was that, one of the most horrible things that happened in Staten Island since I've been living here was when Eric Garner was murdered. I live less than maybe 10 blocks from where this happened. So it was just a devastating experience. Um, and I'll admit right now, I'm not able to watch the video. Everybody's saying watch the video. It's like, I I can't. It just I find it so horrible that this could happen on the street a few blocks from my house. That people that we entrust to enforce our laws to do this to somebody. Um, and that was a huge thing for our neighborhood. Um, you know, not to sound like, oh, it would never happen here, but that was that feeling of it, bringing it right home. Yes, it could happen right down the block from where you live. Um, and we can talk about that a lot. I've naturally got a lot to say, but what happened was, a few months later, there was an incredible rally in Staten Island for justice for Eric Garner. And at that rally, I came across Citizen Action. They had a huge delegation of people at the rally. I knew some of them from other political work I'd done in the city and the state. And I was so impressed. I was like, wow, this is so great. I'm so glad you guys came here. I actually attended that as part of my union, the UFT, United Federation of Teachers. I was very happy that they took a stand there. I was disappointed because a lot of the Democratic Party groups I had worked with kind of weren't there. In fact, there were no Democratic Party elected politicians there. Debbie Rose would have been. I don't want to make it sound like she wasn't there. She had some medical health things going on, so she couldn't attend in person. But of course, she sent greetings and everything else. But so many other Staten Island politicians, electeds, just acted like, well, let's not go over here. I saw a lot of friends from Bay Ridge. It was exciting to see them. And of course, I had friends from Staten Island that were there, just not affiliated with any group. I saw Citizen Action there, and I said to them, wow, this is what we need. We need an organized group like this. You've got this statewide organization. You've got a track record going on for years and years. I really want to build something up in Staten Island that, we're a part of this. Yeah, I know. It was 7 years ago. What happened? Well, a lot of things happened, both locally and
It still
nationally.
feels so recent. Yeah.
So, um, so one of the things I liked about Citizen Action was, I got involved with them right away, and
Mhm.
I was really impressed with the fact that their whole reason for being, um, they're involved in politics, they're involved in elections, but their whole focus is getting the rot out of politics, getting big money out of politics, so that
Mhm.
genuine, authentic citizens who want to play a part in government actually have a chance to run for office.
Mhm.
So, you know, there have been times in my life where I would say, "Oh, come on, this political stuff doesn't work. We always lose. The bad guys always win." But it was exciting to be part of a group of people that said, "Well, no, this is really one way we can get things done is working together on these kinds of issues.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting. I was so excited because the first big event I went to was a holiday party in January 2015. And when the speakers started the party, the first thing they said was, they said, wow, we got great news. Sheldon Silver is being arrested and indicted and blah, blah. And the room just cheered. And I was like, wow, this is a great feeling to be in a room of good people, what I call progressive activists, who were actually excited that Sheldon Silver was finished, because I knew lots of people in the Democratic Party that were saying this is, they had signs, this is so awful, blah, blah, blah. And here it was, wow, a room full of people who I knew had, great motivations for being politically active. And they were actually cheering when they heard the news about Sheldon Silver going down. So that made me feel this is an important group. This is a group we should be working with. Like I said, that's their idea. Get the rot out of politics. Don't be afraid to point at something in politics and say, this is what we should be doing.
Right.
And I'll just mention, because we've talked about this, but I'm not sure how much of the audience knows. The way I first got to know you was I was chair of Peace Action. Shortly after that, I mentioned a lot of things happened between discovering Citizen Action and now, and one of them was Peace Action. And Max Rose, who was our congressman for a while, for one term, had kind of a militaristic slant to the things he would talk about, the things he would do. And he was running for Congress, and he was doing some things that, just kind of unnerved me the wrong way. It's like, why is the military so important? Do I really want my children and other young people to think, well, that's the best path forward, the military? And at a Peace Action event, I was introduced to you. And it's like, well, she's in the military. She's a good person. It's like, so there's actually a path forward. We don't have to be this kind of like symbol of, how bad the military can be. There's actually a line here people can travel that shows that you can be a good person, have good values, and still say, I'm not sure if I like the idea of bombs being dropped on civilians. So anyway, that's how I got to know you. I was very excited about that. But back to Citizen Action.
I appreciate you bringing that up, because it has been, back then when you met me, I was I was working in national movement and getting connected to local movement, right? So we met at that Peace Action meeting several years ago, and I was really grateful for that way, because I'm always in the place of, like, when I look at the landscape, and it was other folks who said this to me, and once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it, where it's like, we have amazing pockets of work happening here in Staten Island, but something that I do think is different between our borough and some of the other boroughs is we're uniquely isolated when it comes to our movements, right? Like, we are not as the issues that we're working around, whether we're talking about developers swooping in and making decisions that aren't best for our communities or that we don't want without our consent, right? Or we're talking about racial justice issues, economic justice issues, right? They all manifest at a local level, and they're connected to systemic issues that are at the national and state levels and city levels, right? So it's like, we need to be building in a way and organizing in a way where we're building interconnections at that level, so that our kind of efforts build up towards that whole, that critical mass that it's going to take, right? And so I feel like I was, one of the reasons why, fast forward to today, I agreed to run for this seat was because I do think that we need more of that kind of national movement, local movement, interconnectedness. And I'm hoping that we can build a campaign that helps to foster some of that relationship and network building. But I also, the reason I'm really excited about Citizens Action is because, one thing I also feel like we need more of is just base building. And for anyone who's not familiar with kind of organizing lingo, that means we have to gather our working class people together and have kind of a sense of organization and a sense of shared purpose and analysis about our strategy. And so often we're caught up in specific policy advocacy or issue-based advocacy, right? Or specific campaigns. And we don't always connect the dots to making sure that those things are continuing to expand our overall power and our overall base. So I feel like I'm a learner, I'm a experimenter on this because I have, I don't at all feel like I've got all the answers for how we do that, but I feel like that's the task at hand.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I'm excited about the role that an organization like Citizen Action could play too in helping with some of that base building and connectivity.
Oh
So,
yeah.
so you all started a new branch here recently. Tell us a little bit about how that came about and, if there are some initial things that y'all are thinking about working on or, kind of why it's important, why you think it's important. I just gave my 2 cents about why I think it's important.
No, it is, and I'm so glad what you said because to be honest, if somebody says, "Well, I have all the answers," my first reaction is, "Well, you don't. Come on." I mean, that's the first thing we have to start with being authentic and being honest and saying, we know we need to organize, but there's no magic formula for success. Well, as everybody listen here, I'm sure is aware, in the last election. Once again, we had a freshman, one-term Democratic congressman who lost re-election to be replaced by not just a Republican, but I don't know, it's a really crass Republican, somebody who's just like the previous one, just like Michael Grimm, just seemingly devoid of principles, willing to pretend to support any issue at any time, and then always vote against our interests. So it was a big, I can't just say a setback for a lot of people I know in Staten Island. It was like almost depressing. The rest of the country was celebrating. Trump lost the election. People in Staten Island were saying, "What happened? We really thought things were improving, things were getting better here, and now all of a sudden we've got this congresswoman who years ago we almost thought was a joke, and now she's a representative in Congress. What are we going to do?" So naturally, there was this huge swirl of interest in we got to do something. And as I mentioned before, there are a lot of people who want to become politically active, who look at the existing political structures and say, that's not working for me. I need something that I feel addresses all of these issues. Like I said, for me, it was very exciting to work with Peace Action for a few years. But what always excited me about Citizen Action was that they had this wide range of issues and things that every person on Staten Island I know it's important, whether it's housing, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, whether it's jobs, minimum wage, all these issues that came up, Citizen Action had a platform. So it was like, okay, this has to be the solution. I mentioned we had, before Max Rose, we had a previous congressman, Mike McMahon, who's now district attorney, and he voted against the Affordable Care Act, 11 years ago. And when he did, I had a big argument with him. He said to me, "Tom, you know as well."
I want to clarify that for anyone who's not familiar.
Sure.
So just to be clear, the reason that this is because I want folks to see the trend. So McMahon not only voted against the Affordable Care Act, he ran on a healthcare platform. He ran on healthcare. And then when he got elected, he voted against the Affordable Care Act at that time. And I say that because we've had a new rep every 2 years for over a decade. That's wild.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to, there are some kind of like surface level assumptions about what you have to do to win here and why that is. But I think we need to be really digging deep into some of these trends and challenging our assumptions, because clearly, even if some of our assumptions about what it takes to win here are right in a short-term sense, they haven't translated to long-term power building here. They haven't translated to our ability to not just flip the seat, but to hold the seat. Right. So anyway, okay, sorry, continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no. Thank you for clarifying that. That's so important. I'm sorry I get carried away in some of these stories sometimes. But his comment to me at the time when he was defending his vote, he said, Tom, you know a progressive could not hold this seat. And of course, we saw that, well, I don't know if that's true. We haven't tried it out yet, but we certainly saw what happened with McMahon and Max Rose. They couldn't hold the seat. So it leaves us with that thought like, well, if you're telling us a progressive couldn't hold a seat, but you couldn't, maybe we should try a progressive. I mean, maybe, but of course, as you said, the secret is the organizing, and the secret, and that's why I'm so glad you're doing these Tuesday talks. That grassroots organizing. Michael Moore has pointed this out for years. The biggest block of voters is not Republican or Democrat. It's people saying, do I have a choice? Who should I vote for? I don't know. Neither one's inspiring me. Inspirational candidates will get elected. The problem is the people that are most inspirational get turned off by the electoral process, or they think, I can't do this. I've talked to so many people that said, I wouldn't be able to run for office. I wouldn't know how to do it. And that's why it's so important to have campaigns like yours and organizations like Citizen Action that say, no, here's the path. And it's not just focused on one issue, but all of these issues that essentially will lift people out of poverty and will empower people who know these are important values to be able to either, if not run for office, at least support candidates like you who have that great agenda. And it's like to not attempt it because the conventional wisdom is it wouldn't work here doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. And, I would argue that actually the evidence points to the opposite, which is what you're alluding to, right? Is that I didn't plan to make this case here, but I'll take a minute because I've been kind of looking for the right opportunity. Maybe I'm going to do a live stream on this soon or something. But there are some really basic things that are real. I've noticed how much Staten Islanders have internalized what we've been told about ourselves over time, right? We've been told so much about ourselves and what's possible here that a lot of folks have started just repeating it as if it's fact, right? Unchallenged. And a lot of folks are shocked to hear, you talked about Max Rose and McMahon, two Democrats who arguably proved that you can get elected on a relatively progressive platform and then arguably lost because they swung right, not because they were too progressive, right? Like that was the momentum. It's that they alienated some of that core organizer base that is critical to really being the kind of engine behind being able to organize the people. And as if, and it's like you build that's a strategic question from the beginning, right? Is if you build a strategy or you get elected on a strategy that requires you to flip someone else's base, you're putting yourself in an impossible position, right? It's not even about whether they're good guys or bad guys, right? It's just strategically, that's an impossible position to maintain, as history has shown us now. And so then to me, the alternative has to be, how do we energize and build our own base? And when I tell people, did you know that people think that this is the Republican borough or the conservative borough? Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1 in this district. People are shocked to hear that. About 200,000 registered Democrats to about 100,000 registered Republicans. And yes, of course, there's nuance to that, right? There's a slice of those Democrats that are Democrats in name only, they're conservative, but not more than half. And we have we have 100% lead over it. So it's like, even if, and when you combine that reality with the fact that even on the last competitive primary, the Democratic turnout was about 11%. 11%. We're talking 19,000 votes total, around there, out of 200,000 registered people, right? So there's something wrong in the formula there, right? And there's potential, there's opportunity, I think, right? To energize, I think we need to be asking ourselves, why are those 180,000 people checked out? Right? Why didn't they feel inspired enough or excited enough? And I've knocked a lot of doors, and I will tell you that the most overwhelming response that I hear to that question consistently, when I say overwhelming, I mean consistent response, is I can't even tell the difference between the Democratic candidate and the Republican candidate. It has nothing to do with concern about their policies are too progressive or anything like that. It's literally just, why should I bother? I can't even tell the difference. What's the difference? So I think that those are just some of the things that we need to be digging into. And that's why this strategy is very different. And I really think we can win, because the other thing I didn't name is there's another about 200,000 people who are checked out entirely, right? Who aren't registered with a party or aren't registered to vote or disengaged, that are potential voters. So if you look at those numbers, obviously we're not going to get all those people, right? But just looking at the numbers, right? You have about, if you put all that together, you have about 400,000 pool of about 400,000 potential people to about 100,000 registered Republicans. And I'm not saying it would break down that cleanly, but there's real opportunity in there, right? And so I think that that's what we're talking about here when we're talking about some of the things that you're mentioning about the district. I think that there's just so many misconceptions that have been just repeated and repeated and repeated about what's possible. And I think it's exciting that through grassroots organizing and through campaigning, we're out to prove something different.
Yeah, it's true. I've heard that myself so many times. People saying, well, you know how bad Staten Island is, and kind of like just shrugging and giving up. But what's amazing is, just like you mentioned your experience knocking on doors, how many people I know personally who feel just disconnected from politics here, even though they know me. They know I've been running for office and for Democratic convention delegates and things. But they just don't see a path in it that will make things better here. And the problem that is because, well, for too long, too many people in power just did not want to pursue that path. There have been great things happening statewide and even countrywide, and you really do need to, reach out to more people in this district and show them that, yeah, there is a path forward, but we do need to energize them and excite them. That's where it starts, right?
Yeah, and I think sometimes that the thinking, it's like people feel frustrated, so they're almost like, oh, well, these people just don't care. And I'm just like, but have you given them something to care about? Have you given them a reason? I think we have to be honest with ourselves that the kind of responsibility or the cause and effect doesn't just go one way, right? It's I have an organizing mentor that says never blame the base.
Right. Yeah.
And what that means, right, is like, if we're interested in building power, then we have to take responsibility for, like, have we given people a vision to be excited about? Have we given people a candidate or an issue or whatever, like a sense of hope, a sense of possibility, and the kind of rigor and discipline behind it to make people feel a sense of confidence that we could really have it, right? That it's not just some kind of pipe dream.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's true. Please always listen to the base, even if it goes against everything that sounds logical to you. A big thing that, as you know, we were there, came up recently was a march to protect the wetlands in Graniteville. That issue has been going on for years. 4 years ago, when I was running for borough president, I spoke at the community board meeting where the community board actually voted against it. Shows a real problem that we have these community boards that are supposed to be our basic unit of democracy. They can say, no, you can't develop this wetlands, and it just gets overruled in the city government. But anyway, the reason I bring that up was you were there at that march and rally a few weeks ago. That was terrific. And a lot of people had criticized originally when I was bringing this up, saying, "But I don't understand, Tom. You support working people. They need a place to shop. They need a place to buy food. They need jobs. Why would you say don't develop this big, empty, nothing swamp?" Well, I have friends that literally live across the street in the developments on this side of South Avenue who were scared that their homes, if not flooded, literally flooded, and have their homes destroyed, that they wouldn't be able to afford the insurance, or that their homeowners association couldn't afford the flood insurance, and they'd have to move.
Yeah.
So, you know, if the base is saying this is scaring us, maybe there's a reason for it. And as much as people need stores to shop in and food to
Yes.
buy and places to buy food, they need places to live. And if the answer to, well, we don't have enough places to buy food means you're going to lose your house in the next flood, or you can't afford to live there because of the flood insurance, you didn't help those people. So
Right.
yeah, always listen to the base.
Yeah.
Sometimes they might get some ideas and talk to them about it. But if their concern is literally, I can't live here if this happens, maybe we should be listening to them and not telling them what we think they should be doing.
Yeah. That's
So
my
thank you for
issue.
coming off that. I really appreciated your presence there.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I'm concerned too. I live here. I'm like, we're still recovering from Sandy. Like, we can't, this is crazy. And it's true. I mean, people have pointed out, activists that have been involved, have pointed out all the empty lots, all the empty buildings that we have. It's not even that we can't have it. It's that we can put it somewhere that, both of those needs can be met. And this idea that it has to be this spot is not the will of the people. And that's my issue. It's not that I'm against development in general. I'm against outside developers who fundamentally their business, right? Like, their motivation is going to be profit. And the decisions in our community shouldn't rely on the informedness and goodwill of some development companies and individuals who, that's not what they're designed for, right? That's not a very good system. If we have to just rely on them to be willing to do what we're asking, we need a system that genuinely centers the needs of the community first and then decides development based on that, right? And if we do that, then it's good for everyone. It's good for business, it's good for the environment, and all of the things. I think that this idea that you have to have one or the other is a myth that's perpetuated by people who take a lot of money from developers. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. It's and that's why I've committed not just to not taking corporate PAC money, but I'm committed to not taking developer money, because it's such a force here in our district that I just think that we need to have a commitment to, I want people to know that they can trust that's where the loyalties of this campaign lie, is with the people, not with a bunch of developers who have funded the campaign,
Right. Oh yeah. No, that's so important. But it's true. This has been you know the big story we've been sold. Well, you can't. You have to pick one or the other. And as a result, when I knock on doors too, when I hear things like, well, why should that person get $15 an hour if I couldn't? Why should they get their college loans, washed away when I couldn't do that? And we have to go against that narrative. We have to make it clear to people. It's like, we're not saying they'll get something and you'll suffer as a result. This is what I said when I ran for borough president. I said, this is like the richest city in the richest country in the world. And we're telling people that live here, you can't afford to stay in your apartment, you're going to be evicted. That doesn't make any sense. The money is there. The wealth is there. The problem is figuring out, why are some people in a position where their choice is, homelessness, unemployment. That's the problem, figuring that out, not just saying, well, we couldn't afford to do this and wasn't this better. It's like, come on, there are other solutions out there. Stop confining it to this or that, and start looking at proposals and plans here that allow people to live and allow them to be healthy.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a matter of priorities. Exactly. It's this idea. there is enough to go around. There is enough to go around if we have leaders who are willing to choose to prioritize actual needs, right, over these other interests. And so thank you for that. So well put, so important. And I think that that's really what this is about, right? And I'm trying to be clear and transparent too, that like the policies, the platform, the transformation that I'm talking about as a either as a movement leader or as a candidate, I think is we need to be honest that what we're talking about is really transformation at the roots, is a new way of prioritizing, we need to build a new kind of economy that really does center need and care over this kind of endless growth and profit. And that's going to take time, right? It's important to me to be clear that what we're running on, what we're building here is a movement that is about the transformation that we need for the long run, right? And that's going to mean that we can make some important interventions in the short run. But what I'm committed to fighting for is kind of that like structural change that we need, right? Like if you're getting significant federal contracts, why are you allowed to put money back into the pockets of politicians? That should be illegal. That's literal corruption. If it was happening in any other government, we would call it, oh, that's corruption, and we would point to it and we would look down on it, right? And it's literally, you have people who are getting our tax dollars, millions, billions of dollars, in revenue for their business from our tax dollars, and then turning around and putting those dollars right back into the pockets of politicians through campaign contributions to ensure that those dollars keep flowing. And it's those kinds of things that we actually have to interrupt if we want to be able to pass some of the other things that we know we need, like a Green New Deal, like Medicare for all, like some of these basic things that really are the bare minimum that we need in order to really meet the needs of our communities, especially our most vulnerable communities. Anyway, you got me all fired up, Tom. I'm like so boxed over here.
That's what we need. That's what we need to let people know. If you're fired up, run for office. It can be done. It doesn't have to be this, like I said, this strange, mysterious process. It's not easy, but if people are inspired, they'll find a way to do it. So that's the important part.
Yeah.
One of the things we talk about in citizen action is, the old expression was, well, you can't fight City Hall. And it's like, no, that's the wrong approach. We're not going to fight City Hall. We want to take over City Hall.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about some revolution. I'm talking about, that's what we should be focusing on.
I have talked to a lot of people that are supposed to represent us. Yeah.
I have to that say, forget electoral politics. But the truth is, if we don't intervene in electoral politics, the politicians will do what they want, because what's going to stop them? If nobody's watching the fox isn't just going to go back in the woods and leave the hens alone. There always has to be that oversight. There always has to be, making sure not only do we elect people that understand how to make changes that help everybody, but that they're authentic, and that they're not going to turn around and say, okay, well, how about this? And go down a path that ends up just hurting people.
Exactly. So, yeah. And I mean what I've said, and one of the reasons I said yes, right? I've been kind of like goofy and sheepish when people are like, why are you running? I'm like, people ask me, I can't believe I'm doing this. It's been a whole weird experience in kind of getting used to the idea. But one of the main reasons I said yes is because it became clear to me. I was like, I'm tired of begging elected officials to give us crumbs. Literally, right? Like, we're begging for bare minimum scraps that still don't even meet our needs, really. And then they're telling us, oh, you should be so grateful I gave you these crumbs off the table. And I just got to the place where I was like, I'm sick of this. We're in this endless cycle of spending so much energy and so many resources begging these people to just even approach, the idea of doing the right thing. And I'm tired of that. I think we just have to put our people in those seats. And that's where, as a starting place, right? And and that means that we have to be building independent working class power, right? And that's what I think is so exciting about citizen action, is that there's a willingness to engage. There's an analysis about the system, right? And the way that we have to engage with the system to build that power, and to do harm reduction in the short run, right? But I think that there's also this commitment to building this kind of independent organization. And so, with that said, what are some of the, upcoming things that you all think that you might be prioritizing working on? And how do people who want to get involved get involved?
Well, we've got a meeting coming up Thursday night. I can give you the information on that, how to attend the meeting if you want to.
Definitely. So Thursday night, and I think we have it. So I think we're going to drop the registration link in the comments.
Great. Wonderful.
So for anyone who's watching, the registration link is in the comments, or will be shortly. And let's see, what time was that? It's Thursday night. There we go. Thursday, May 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern, Staten Island branch meeting.
That's a general meeting, so we'll just be going over some of the recent activities like the Graniteville wetlands and the upcoming primary. There's citywide primaries as well as local primaries.
Awesome. Yeah.
So if people want to attend, register at the link, and look forward to seeing you on Thursday.
And if people just want to come and get a feel for it without officially joining, that's okay, right?
Anyone please. That's the whole idea. Yeah.
Okay, great. Awesome.
Like you said, people are hungry for these ideas. And we don't want anybody feeling like put off, or you don't know enough, or well, I never heard you do anything before. What are you doing here now? No, that's the kind of person we want. You always thought, nah, this is not for me. I don't want to do this. No, come to this meeting. Listen to us talk. Not professional politicians. In fact, the leadership basically takes an oath saying they will not, run for office, or obviously we're not going to have people, taking money from developers, trying to establish these kind of organizations. Yeah. Look, I mean, 2 years ago, last year, sorry, the campaign started 2 years ago. Last year, we elected somebody in the Bronx to Congress, Jamal Bowman. He, picked up this. At the time, it seemed like an impossible task, running against an incumbent Democrat. And Citizen Action got together, and he won the primary. So, people know it doesn't make sense just to dismiss these efforts. People know these things can happen. So look into groups like these.
Yes.
That are taking, several different issues that have some kind of organization, have a track record, because there is that thirst, that hunger for authentic political campaigns that will help people out, and not just, and like you said, end up making a deal with developers and saying, well, because we did this, we can give you this crumb now, and making us feel like, right, we can only get that crumb, we're still hungry, but the crumb is better than starving. That conversation has to come to an end. The conversation has to be, as I've said before, there is so much wealth and so much money right here in this city. The fact that any person should have to be homeless is insane. And if people tell me I don't want a homeless shelter in my neighborhood, my attitude is, I don't want any person to be homeless. How do we stop people from being evicted? How do we stop rents from being out of control? No one should be homeless. The fact that there's homeless shelters, that's not the problem. The problem is homelessness. So let's get that conversation where it should be, and get away from this, as you said, oh, it's this or that. You got to choose. You have a homeless shelter, or you have people in the ferry. It's like, oh, we should have affordable housing for every single person. Affordable housing should be a right. That's one of the Citizen Action's platforms. Just like healthcare should be a right.
On my website too. I agree with you. Just
of course, yes. But I think most people do. Unfortunately, as you said, they end up believing the worst things they hear, and that conversation has to be turned around.
Yeah, absolutely. So well put. Well, everyone, again, the link is in the comments. If you can't join for that meeting, follow Citizen Action on social media for updates about the next opportunities to get plugged in. As my friend Justina is pointing out, I also have a fundraiser at that same time, so I won't be at that meeting. She has been so, we are fundraising because we're not taking money from all of these corporate interests. And folks, we are running a grassroots powered campaign, which means regular citizens that are from the district and beyond, like Justina, are hosting fundraisers for us with the friends from their network, their neighbors. And that's how we've been raising money. We have already done what people have told us we could not do. We broke fundraising records for what's possible in this district for a candidate like me. To give you a sense, only one candidate, most candidates raised no more than 110,000 in the last competitive Democratic primary for the entire primary cycle. And in our first 6 weeks, we raised almost 130,000, all powered by the grassroots. Something that many, many people told me was not possible or was too ambitious. On top of that, we are the only, I believe, congressional candidate that national organization Move On, which has millions of members, has endorsed for the 2022 cycle. And all of this, today is our 3-month anniversary for having even announced the campaign, and all of that so soon, with additional endorsements from Mark Ruffalo, aka the Hulk, Gloria Steinem, Barbara Ransby, legendary feminist Barbara Smith, who is one of my personal mentors, and others. So we are already doing what people have told us was not possible, and we're going to keep doing it. And what I'm hoping is that we spend, these races are expensive, and I hope that we can minimize the amount that we spend in the primary running against each other, and instead we come together and we make sure that Nicole Malliotakis is a one-term candidate. And that is where we really focus our efforts, in coming together for a new vision for Staten Island and really consolidating our power to do that. So if you are excited to do that, donate, follow us on social media, sign up to volunteer. We have plenty of things to put you to work doing already, even though we're so early in the cycle. And we have been out there doing voter registration too. So make sure that you are registered, that you vote in the upcoming New York City primaries. They are very important. And they are much nearer than my election will be. So make sure that you get involved, you get, in citizen action, in voting, in, community organizing, and mutual aid projects that redistribute resources to care for each other in our communities, and all the different ways that you can be getting involved. Tom Shcherebenko, everybody, thank you. Make sure to give him his flowers for all that he's done in this community. And thank you so much again for joining and for the work that you're doing.
Thank you for doing this, please.
Yeah. All right. Take care, everyone.